Hey, crew, I'm here with Pastor Brian Webber, who pastors a thriving church of over 300 people in Devonport, Tasmania. And Brian, you just had 8 weeks leave. What on
Oh,
earth possessed you to take an 8 week holiday?
well, apparently we have this entitlement in Australia called long service leave, which we actually tried to take back in 2020. But as we all know, 2020 was a little bit of a disrupted year. So we then planned to take it a little bit later. Oh, then in the building we were in that we were leasing at the time sold. So it's taken a little bit of time. But finally, in this, we're actually over December and January, both my wife and I took 2 months leave. It's actually something we'd seen a couple of other pastors do because I was a little bit weirded about the timing. But just listening to some of the feedback, we just went, particularly for us here in Tasmania, summer is precious. And to have leave during a warm, relaxed time of the year where people are also in holiday mode, it just allowed us to be on leave and be on leave with friends, family who were also coming into their leave. So it was super nice to have a time to sit back, be refreshed. When I was in college, I was around cars a little bit, and I had this Datsun 200B. It's a great car, beautiful car. But the thing about this car was that all engines have a certain amount of K supposedly before they're starting
Hmm.
to die or whatever else. So you can either choose to throw the engine away, or you can just realize you're not going to have the car for a while, pull the engine apart, rebore the cylinders,
Hmm.
put new rings in it, do a whole heap of new things to it. And not only will that give the engine a longer life, but it'll actually even go more powerful than it used to. This Datsun 200B, after it had been reworked, oh, John, people, it just flew this thing. It was incredible. So the idea of leave wasn't so much burnout or anything like that, but I just want to be in this for as long as I can and even going better than I've ever done.
Yeah.
So the ability
Yeah.
to take 8 weeks leave at once. Oh, so refreshing. So refreshing.
And in Australia, for our people not in Australia, 8 weeks long service leave is what you get for working X number of years in an industry. So Australian pastors get this, like all people working in Australia. However, overseas, you may want to think in terms of a sabbatical for this. So, Brian, how did you prepare your church for being away for that long? That's a long period of time to be away from your church. How did you prepare your
Yeah.
church?
Well, first of all, again, we talked to those who've done it before, and we got some really good advice, particularly from a certain consultant and coach, whom I'm sure you all know really, really well. And what we did was we let the church know about certain point people, so to speak, basically people who would have to make some hard calls for the ones that Sharon and I have to make from time to time. We actually broke that up again because of the advice given to us. We didn't just put it as one person. We had a person for each month who became like the pinpoint. They became responsible for the month. One of those was a gentleman with a young family, and particularly for him, we just thought, with a young family through the Christmas sort of time frame, he's a guy who's going to need a break, a chance to rest with his family. So we really wanted to ensure that he didn't feel he was carrying it the whole time. Some of the advice we've also been given is that just sometimes new habits form when the leader's not around and only one person's been that person for a long period of time. So the advice was to break it up, which we did. And hindsight would say that was a really smart and wise thing to do. The other thing that we did was because particularly it was the Christmas season and we a little bit event heavy through December in particular, is that we actually let the team do all the creation of what those events were going to be like. My wife and I, who both pastor the church together, we actually gave no input into what the church will look like through that season, other than just, hey, let's ensure that we're creating something that when guests come through or that will be attractive to guests in our community. And as a side note, we saw something like over 140 people in those 2 months of us being on leave through the creativity of those teams and the things that they put together. Just it's been phenomenal to come back and just now look at some of the stats, and the teams owned all of that. Oh, John, some of the great feedback we've been getting from not necessarily those who are amongst the leadership team, but those outside of the team have actually said to us, the church just didn't skip a beat. It's like you at the end of the day, you wouldn't know the pastors weren't around, other than obviously what we both bring as pastors. But they said the church just seemed to run smoothly. So yeah, it's been great to see the way our teams have lifted, owned things, and carried the life of the church without us.
So, personal benefits for you. Give us one personal benefit that you really gained from an 8-week break, unhooked from the email, the weekly preaching, the counseling, the pastoral care? What's one personal benefit you really found?
I I think this most single one would be self-awareness. As pastors and leaders of churches, I sometimes don't think because we're in it all the time, and therefore we don't get a real good, great glimpse of what it is that we carry. But to have a 2-month break like that, no responsibilities, not having to be anywhere, not having to take any phone calls, not having to be thrown into critical situations or making decisions on the fly all the time. It was just to be self-aware of what it's like to have those weights taken off, the awareness of what it was feeling like to then take those weights back on when we were coming back.
Hmm.
And therefore the understanding of, again, if I want to be this for the next 10, 15 years, how is my self-awareness working in the process of identifying rest, identifying rhythms, identifying those things, and just even a grace to myself of knowing, like, yeah, there's a weight that comes with being a pastor. It's just what it is. So yeah, be a bit kind to myself. Things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the very truth there. There is a weight to pastoring and a burden that most people don't experience and don't understand. And as pastors, we
Mm.
certainly get that. Well, 8 weeks is a long break. How did you actually
Yeah.
prepare mentally and emotionally for re-entry? So it's not like just having a few weeks off and you're back into it.
No.
8 weeks, you're really unplugged and unhooked. How did you prepare mentally, emotionally for the fact I'm going to be picking up the burden that I haven't felt for a while again? How did you get ready for that?
That's a really good question, and I'm not. And even though we sought advice on what it looks like, so particularly once we were back, the advice was to only, the heck, just go back part time. Don't try and catch up on everything at once. So there were a few of those things that we knew were coming to us, but to a certain degree, I think we were still unaware, to use that word again, of the weight of those things coming back. I know for my wife in particular, she started ringing around a couple of other lady pastors who'd been on long service leave and going like, is this normal? Is this normal to feel, that, to a certain degree, even nearly an anxiousness about coming back to taking those weights on? We certainly noticed some health benefits from being on our break, and things that we're wanting to keep in our rhythm, and just going, are we really going to be able to do those things in our returning? Which again comes back to that self awareness, which has been the greatest gift, I think, of the break. And so therefore there's a mix of, I don't know if you can completely repair yourself for, as much as an understanding that, hey, look, there's, I would say, even, I mean, I'm 3 weeks in now, and probably 3 weeks in now starting to feel like, oh yeah, I know the rhythms again. I know decisions, things that I have to make, and the engine's running a little harder now after the break.
I remember even just come back from 3 or 4 weeks holiday, that first Sunday, just slight nervousness and anxiety,
Yeah.
worry, or just,
Yep.
and then it evaporates pretty rapidly when you realize, after 3 or 4 week break, you're not that disconnected. So
No.
3 weeks back in it, one word to describe how re-entry has been. Pick one word.
Oh, let's go with exciting. I think I'm going to go with that.
Hmm.
As much as there's been the uncertainty, because again, 3 weeks as opposed to 2 months. 2 months ago, like, is there a church left? Are people still there? And I think also exciting because one of the helpful things for me in preparing for long service leave was that one of the habits that I've learned through coaching, through yourself, is that I do a prayer retreat before the end of a year. And in that space, I had a real sense of a download of God for the year ahead.
Hmm.
So in going away and then having the re-entry, knowing that all that pre-work for the year ahead, the majority of it's actually done. And
Yeah.
therefore that's allowed, therefore, to be that sense of possibilities, excitement. And we've been blessed. We've heard a reasonable amount of good news stories while we've even been away. We've seen some decisions for Christ on returning. So there's those few things in returning that just add to the sense of, like, I'm excited about what I do and what God's called. Well, I should say what God's called us to do. This isn't a job. It's a calling. It's a ministry, and I'm very excited about being back, so to speak, with that freshness of the engine rebuilt.
There you go, pastors. Take an 8 week break. It'll do you and your church good. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much, and God bless each and every one of you listening.